have some new folks that just joined us in right now. So we're in conversation with Galia Linn, who's part of the exhibition, The Body, the Object, the Other. So if any of you didn't get a chance to check out the exhibition has been extended, so there's still the possibility of you to check out the show. And Hollywood's had just shown the work that's by Galia that's in the exhibition, which is actually one of the pieces that's outdoors in our courtyard. So even though the museum has been closed, if you've driven by there lately, you might have been able to see it. And Galia, so you were showing us a little bit of some of the stuff that you've been working in the studio, and I think you were talking a little bit about a Diviner Woman, and you were also about resources and kind of continuing to do studio visits to help support your community. And also, I mean, we've been so excited that some of the artists that were part of this exhibition have opened up our doors to their studios to show us what they're working on. And even seeing you with that piece that you're working on behind you is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. COVID happened. Well, I mean, you know, go ahead. There's something about stones, I think, that I find really, when we find them in nature, there's this power to them. So I'm drawn to that, but this kind of evolved to something else. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see where it's going to go.
Yeah, you know, as you mentioned stones, I look around my apartment, and I've always been tried to collect the stones from Mexico that have somehow made their way back to the United States as this kind of like gesture to like bringing back a piece of my land and my home with me that has been almost like lost somewhere else. Can you talk a little bit about stone and what made you name that stone? I know you talk a lot about kind of these protectors and these guardians and Stonehenge and these histories.
So maybe I'll talk a little bit, and then I can show you some of the sketches and references. And allowing whatever ritual to come in, to kind of come through, you know, I don't need. Actually, that's kind of changing. I mean, I think part of what's happening right now in this pose, I'm starting to think that I want to bring my own ritual and my own excavation into my own life and my own relics. But that's kind of a different conversation or a different answer. So when we create these places of ritual, I mean, I think one of the oldest ones were stones. And what happened is, I guess, from what I can tell, is you select a certain kind of stone, like you select them when you go back to in your travels, or you go back home, and then the way we place it, how many stones, all of it has kind of like an effect on our psychic. And it's interesting because when you go, or even if you see pictures like Stonehenge or other stone circles, it affects you even through the picture, and then just walk it through. There's something about our psychic. I'm interested in philosophical study, and it's about studying the structure of our subconsciousness when we're having a first-person body interaction with an object. So something happens to us, and it's this place before thinking, before feeling. It's like this knowing, this primal knowing. And so I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that feeling. I'm interested in that kind of like expression. I mean, I think you kind of get that feeling when you walk through a Richard Serra installation. Like your whole body is involved in the making of experiencing the work. I'm going to. So these are some of my references.
Oh, wow.
I mean, these are just stones.
Yeah.
I mean, I find there's something magical about them, right? And this is newer for me to explore because these are older than what I've been exploring with, but I've been exploring the concept of guardians and vessels. Comes a lot from archaeology sites. It's Neolithic sites in Turkey. And I'm interested in an area in the city that's called Catalhuyuk, and you could see these excavations here.
Oh,
and this is a reconstruction of this, and this is how. So this is where I've been kind of coming from. I've been obsessing over these images for, I don't know, 25 years.
Yeah.
And in some ways, stone is kind of going further back. But what interests me in this culture, just as a reference point, they were active between 7500 to 5700 BC. And if you look at these are sleeping steps. You can see it here. And they would put bones of their ancestors inside.
Oh, wow.
And so it's really interesting because it's a culture that the city was a proto-city. There was no hierarchy. There's no one building that was elevated than another. There was no separation in life and death because you bring in the bones of your ancestors into the building. And evidence is showing that men and women were living in equality. Imagine that. So
wow. What a
of care, evidence to show that we're able to feel compassion towards each other, towards the world, and live in a more sustainable way. And so that's what I've been focusing on, and these are some of the sketches that I've been kind of playing with an environment. And stone is a little bit as an extension of it because, as I said, these are the older installations of places of ritual. And here are some newer ones. Georgia O'Keeffe, which her and I, by the way, share a birthday.
Ah, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's the reason why I became an artist, because I kind of became an artist later in life because growing up in Israel, art wasn't a thing. I mean, So I'll show you. Shall I show you some more of some of the stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's as you show, like it's interesting seeing stone also as almost a bridge, because I remember seeing some of the maquettes and some of the prototypes that you had been working on stone, and I also went to one of the shows at Track 16 and saw a smaller variation of some of the forms that you were working with, and it was interesting seeing your sketches right now, because I started seeing more of that horn form and also these more representative kind of gestures of the red, and now the red as this creature as well.
Yeah. So these are my broken clean shells.
Ah, yes.
So my pieces are large, and eventually the shelves break. And I have all these beautiful shapes, that are just there and asking for, they're relics, right? It's a relic. It's a relic of the process, because in my practice, I'm very much, I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm dedicated to the process. And so this is the evidence of the process. And I can show you some of the small ones that I made from those. They were in the show at Track 16.
Ah, yes.
So you could see. And that introduced a new thing for me, which is kind of painting and working with color.
I really like almost these relationships with ceramic as a material and ceramic as a ritual, like these like coiling and slabbing, this like meditative process, and kind of almost these like convergences of like meditation and ritual Growing when I was an undergraduate studying ceramics, I remember one of the things that we had is we had kiln gods and goddesses,
Yes.
which were kind of these gods and goddesses, these protectors that you would have in your kiln room just to make sure that everything survived from a firing.
Yeah, my friend made me one of these. Beverly Morrison is an amazing,
Yeah.
also ceramic sculptor. This is one
Yeah.
of my kiln goddesses. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, and then so I started working with. I don't know if I've
Yeah.
discovered pencils. There are glazes.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
That's like so amazing. I could just paint and then glaze, and
It's like
it's
a whole new world.
a whole new world. Yeah, yeah. And then there's watercolors too, so that's
Mhm.
kind of cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's you know, I think maybe now, um, all these thoughts going through our heads, it's kind of like a dark time.
Mhm.
And I have this mantra that I constantly kind of is going through my head, which says, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer
Mm.
of your thoughts. So it's okay to have whatever thoughts and feelings you're having, just observe them. And I think part of reading this book that I mentioned before, the 9th Street Women,
Mhm.
it's about, and it's told from the perspective of Lee Krasner, Elaine de
Mhm.
Kooning, Joan Mitchell, Grace Hardigan, and Helen
Hardigan. Mhm.
Frankenthaler.
Mhm.
So, they were living through horrible times, 1930s, 1940s, World War II, Korea, McCarthyism. And so they talked about how it gave them permission to go in and to kind of let things come to you. And I'm really
Mm.
embracing this
Mm.
right now, you
Yeah,
know.
right. That's true. I mean, I remember you mentioned too that you also saw it as a moment to kind of to pause, to slow down,
Mm-hmm.
and even to experiment, which is something that I keep talking to a lot of artists. How there's also this like very unique space that has been created where you can take risk, where you can experiment, there's almost kind of this energy with it that could kind of create different things in the studio, perhaps.
Indeed. So before this started, I was thinking about this being in a state of cognitive dissonance.
Mm.
And I mean, going through this, it started from a point of view of a woman. I think for women or anybody that's the other, actually. We, in order to thrive and survive in this world, we constantly have to take actions that are against our beliefs, our values, and our feelings. And I think just recognizing, okay, cognitive dissonance, this is what's happening. And I think with COVID-19, I mean, I think what's happening is like, this is a global cognitive dissonance that's
Mm.
happening.
Mm.
I don't have any answers to that. I just feel like, okay, maybe just recognizing that this is what's happening, and maybe that's going to help us to turn it around and get to a point of cognitive, what is that, consonance? That's the difference. That's the harmony part.
Right, right.
But what's been happening to me, maybe I'll just show
Yeah, your new experiments.
about.
That's amazing.
It started with I want to make this piece.
Ah, yes.
And what happened is working with Crafts Contemporary, with the museum, with the courtyard, with the installation, and thinking about one of the circular planes for the piece,
Mm-hmm.
I started working with stucco.
Mm.
And then I'm like, oh, I love this stucco, and I'd like to incorporate it into the
Wow.
world. And so I started making this new piece, and it's going to be stucco on top as well, and this is hydrocal. So for me, it's kind of like the bookend of my process. It's where I begin and where I end, and then intertwine throughout. But I use it. See, I use stucco the way I use clay. If you notice the texture for the This is hydrocal, and so I'm going to paint it pink.
Wow, hot pink.
Hot pink. Okay, so these are Home Depot paints. And I'll give you the names of the paints. High Maintenance.
Yes.
Heartbreaker.
Oh my God.
And Beauty Queen.
Wow, 2 pinks.
Okay.
Right.
For the 3 pinks. Yes.
Yeah,
I have 3 pinks and 3 reds.
A lot of problems there.
You think? Talk about cognitive. Anyway, and this bust that I've made a while ago and needed I made it, and that's going to go on top.
Wow.
So clay is a part of it. And then, so I had to practice the painting. I'm not, it's a different, here are my paints.
Oh.
You see these boards? Tell me if I'm moving too fast.
No,
these boards, when I build my work, usually because it's so heavy, I do it on moving dollies, and I put the board. And so you see how deliciously dirty these boards are?
Yeah, you can see the rings from time from different pieces and different clays.
Yeah, you see that?
That's beautiful.
And so I had a whole bunch of plywood around, and so I started painting, practicing my pinks.
Wow.
And since I don't know how to do things in a singular...
You did 10 of them.
and both of them are like double-sided too.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and then I had this other bust that I didn't glaze, but it was fired. And I'm like, I wonder what that would look like if I painted it. So So, I mean, I think one of my ways of releasing myself from the cognitive dissonance is allowing myself to paint in pink.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So there you have it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. It's great because like these like spaces that one can open up in their studio to like experiment or to do something strange, and like you could do it and you might like it, or you could do it or you might not like it, but like I feel like at the end, like every process that goes into like a studio and experimentation will somehow affect and will somehow resonate through the different things that you're doing in there.
Totally. I don't know. These might end up being placeholders. I mean, for my new ceramic pieces, that's fine. I don't. It's the process of. It's like I said. I mean, I don't. The outcome is secondary. The process is what interests me. It brings me a lot of joy, and so it makes me laugh. Every time I look at that, and I think of it. Oh, and the reds. I didn't tell you the reds. The red there was a stiletto, love, and something. But I mean, so I look at it, and now I notice that this is what's happening, and I'm like, oh, okay. So it's
true.
yeah.
True. Well, that's amazing, and it's that piece in the background. I'm so curious about it. Like, I'll be really excited to see how.
Me too.
Sort of like moves along.
I have no idea what's gonna happen because I don't. These are all. I work with high fire clays. Everything I do is stoneware. So, and I use a lot of reduction in my process. I like the way it comes, what it does to the body of clay. So I don't know that I can get that bright of a pink in there.
Right.
So
right.
Especially with that. I may just fire it to, cone 10 and maybe use Home Depot colors. Who knows? I used to feel like it's cheating. You can't use anything on glass off from. Yeah,
so like these purists. Like.
Yeah. You have to have glaze on. You can't just paint it. That's just. Yeah.
No, it's been great kind of seeing that level of experimentation. And I mean, with your work and kind of bringing in like a huge tree trunk as the pedestal, or bringing in cinder blocks, or bringing in kind of these like unexpected things like the stucco or like the gravel, and kind of like really playing with all these like perceptions, and almost like breaking rules left and right as to like how it perhaps like the rules from within, sort of like a more conservative like canon of ceramics, one could say. So it's interesting kind of seeing how your practice navigates all these like multiple facets.
Yes, I like breaking rules. I think so I use low fire glaze, and I high fire it to see what's going to happen. But I think also, and that's a conversation you and I had when we were doing the installation, it was, for me, it's very important. Art is life. Not, I trade with other artists, and I love it. I feel like we talked about how people should be able to sit on the pedestal and stand on the pedestal, and it's not precious that way, and it went through along those lines when we were installing it too. And how we talked about the installation and the safety of everyone, because you're lifting, a 300-pound piece of, it's all a part of it. It's all a part of it. And I think that's really what's really important to me.
Yeah, and
to take away the preciousness of it.
It's such a beautiful gesture to be able to sit on it and interact with it almost as if it was another body that was right next to you. And the fact that you don't have to wear gloves in order to touch it, or that you can kind of like lie down on the pedestal with the stucco right next to it, and kind of like enjoy the sun. Like, and it's been really great kind of seeing people interact with it.
People are sitting. Well,
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
there?
some of them are freaking out a little bit, but they sit there, and like once in a while I'll go out there and there's like footprints on it. So
Wonderful.
No.
When I make these installations, and I've done several permanent in collectors' home and temporary ones in the Athenaeum and the Descanso, whatever, it's a creative space within a space, and and it's really a conversation between the space, the object, and the people, and you have to have all three things at the same time, together. That's what kind of like, that's what interests me. That's what brings things to life. I can show you some of, we talked about the vessels. I think I have one of the white vessels.
Right now, if you have any questions for Galia, you can go ahead and send them over right now, and I can go ahead and pass this along.
I'm going to go outside for a second in my little I don't know.
Wow. Yeah,
we're
getting a tour.
Yeah, in my garden.
That's beautiful. That bowl, wow. Wow.
And I have a little bird bath in here.
Did you make that too?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, well, it's not. It won't hold water. I mean, I don't know if you can see.
Wow.
And this
I think we might be losing a little bit of a signal right now, but we can still see.
Okay, I'll go in. And this is a garden.
Yeah. Holly's mentioning that it's a galaxy.
This one? And I can show you. These are some of. I used to work, as I said, with black and white. These are some of the vessels. And the inside, there's always stuff going on inside. That's the evidence of the process.
Yeah. Like all trimmings and.
Yeah, exactly. Because these are slab built, so when I score, it goes in there. And these are some of the smaller vessels. So this was before I made stone. As you can tell, there's similarities with some of the glazes.
Those blues that you mentioned, that those blues actually come from two glazes mixing, right?
2 or 3 or 4, it depends.
Or 4,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you could see. So this is when I kind of started allowing myself to be free, and then the idea of doing stone over there, it just, these are like, I call them temple boxes, because it's an installation, it's a structure inside, its own little installation.
Oh, and actually, we do have a question from our co-curator, Holly Georger. If you could talk about how scale factors into your work.
Oh, scale is very, so you can see the scale for this. Scale is very important, because I think about it, if I go back to Richard Serra's installation, if they were smaller, would they have the same effect? And going back to phenomenology, to feel something with your body, it needs to be a certain size. That's the part of you, the person who's interacting with the work. For me, the size is important, because I like to work until the process for me to work is also very physical. I like to be in this place of exhaustion. And so then you don't think. Your body kind of goes into, it does what it needs to do. So it's much more primal. There's a lot less intent, and you can remove yourself from the process of making the work. And so that's what scale is important to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible seeing the image that you sent us, which was actually the image used for the promo of this conversation, but seeing that even in relation to the scale of the maker of your body in Korea.
And that's not one of my largest pieces.
Oh, there's bigger ones. Yeah.
Yeah. In the storage. In the back. Yes, I like to work. I like to work large. There's something very rewarding about just your whole body involved in making the work. It's very comforting to me.
I think we had another question, and then if anybody else wants to send any other questions, if not, we can maybe start wrapping up the talk. How can you fire such a big piece? Do you need a large kiln?
Yes, I have a very large kiln. Yes.
And you mentioned it was a gas kiln too, right?
It's a gas kiln, yes. That's why I can do reduction, and it's a guile kiln, and I made this investment because I make so much work. I'll take you to the storage.
And as you take us to the storage too, Galia, so people get a bit of an idea, how long does it take to fire something like stone?
So there's 2 firing, obviously, the bisque and the glaze, and it's around 24 to 27 hours. That doesn't include cool down. That's just firing.
That's just the firing.
So here, I'm going to show you.
Oh my God! Wow. That's incredible.
So before I start working, this is all gunmetal and white, and the red is when you put the gunmetal on clear, and the green is when you put white on top of gunmetal. So this is the chemical reaction.
Oh wow.
And you can see these ones.
Wow.
So you can see the scale.
That's amazing. So many guardians.
Yes, guardians and vessels.
And vessels.
So vessels are our vulnerability. It's like humans. Every crack in every scratch is. Oh, that's a big mama.
Wow.
See the big.
Yeah.
I could literally go in there. I did. Oh yeah. So and these were the ones who were installed at the Descanso Gardens in a circle of 6.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like. Is that one wearing a hat?
Yeah, because it's my background when I go out. This is from the Nature Society. So the vessels is about vulnerability, the scars, the cracks.
Well, the cracks. Yeah.
Yes, they seems vulnerable and fragile, but just like us, we're not so vulnerable or fragile.
Mm-hmm.
We're much stronger than we appear.
It's incredible because it's a beautiful metaphor for our bodies and who we are, and the fact that clay retains the memory of every action and everything that it's gone through and the time that it's taken it to turn into what it is. It's a very similar metaphor to our own bodies and what we carry.
And then when I make the guardians, I kind of tap into the strength, but the strength inside of us. Sometimes I call them guardians of our divinity, which is interesting because I'm in a church and I'm interested in places of ritual.
Yeah,
but the divinity is the strength and the light that's inside of each and every one of us. So to kind of connect with that.
Yeah. And for any of you, used to be a church, right?
Yeah.
So for anybody that to make those kind of like interesting connections to the space and the memory of the space, and also what you're creating in there now.
Yeah, you could see
Wow.
My crystal windows.
Well, thank you so much, Galia, and thank you for welcoming us to your space and for being patient with, of course, all these like technological issues that come around with this world.
Well, it's little drops of joy.